Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the i68 podcast. Hello, Christina. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Sam?
I'm good, thank you. Um, Kind of before we get into this topic, I wanted to talk about the whole Ukraine situation super quick. So, we've been praying and we've been, interceding, and we have also set up a donation for this church in Ukraine to help out the people there. And we've raised up over $3,000, which is
Wow.
great. And we're excited and we're happy that we get to help. But we just want to say that we're praying for Ukraine. We're rooting for the people there and are hoping that this conflict would subside. But in the meantime, thoughts and prayers. So, anyways, kind of switching gears into this week's topic, wanted to talk about media and the church specifically. So before we kind of get into that, I wanted to ask you, what is your role in ministry? What do you do usually? And
So I do words and lights. I've
Mhm.
been doing it for between 8 to 10 years. I'm not really sure when I started, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've started out doing Sunday services, just words and lights, kind of. I then went into the youth ministry. At some point, I became in charge of that. I do it for teens. Somehow we make it work, even though we don't use Pro Presenter, which I'll go into a little bit later as well with the program that we use. But that's kind of it. And I do photography, but that's like once in a while.
Yeah. So you're clearly, you've been very involved in this ministry. You kind of know like the ins and outs of it, and you've been really involved. You kind of understand the reasoning behind it, and I kind of wanted to kind of gear towards the why we need media in the church specifically, like in a church service, because I think people, they'll undermine it a lot and they won't see the importance right away. But I think that it's important to know how it makes everything more. It makes everything easier for the average church goer to follow and be involved in worship, and then there's like other aspects of it. So that I think it's important that we don't undermine like this particular ministry, and that's why I'm kind of here today with it to talk about it. So, to you, what is media in the church, and kind of what do you think it entails specifically?
So media in the church specifically, I would kind of just say it's when you come into a church, what's the first thing you notice is the lights and what's on the screen. And that's what maybe because I've been doing it for so long, but that's the first thing that I notice is how the church presents themselves, how they, that's kind of a first impression when you go into a church, because you can go into a church and there can be absolutely nothing on the screen, nothing, no lights, just plain white lights just everywhere, and it's just kind of boring looking, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I've mainly been in our church for basically my whole life, so I'm used to, I saw a transition from before we did our LED lights to, it was just literally just lights, nothing, just stage lights, nothing else, nothing too special. And then once we remodeled our church, we got LED lights, and that kind of changed a lot of how kind of not how we present ourselves. Like our focus is still the same. It's shifted a lot though in a good direction. And I think that media influences how when you come into a church, it really is a first impression of kind of how a church can be. Sometimes you just have to go with the vibe, I feel like.
Yeah, right. And I think for every church, it could be different, you know. In some churches, maybe their focus isn't necessarily geared towards that, which that's okay. My personal take on this is like in this like day and age, I think it's important to sometimes make the way you're presenting something relevant to the churchgoer, and lights can be one of them, you know, that it really helps. For me, like, this is kind of weird, but like for me personally, I like it when the lights are off. and then there's
Mm-hmm.
lights on the stage, and it kind of helps me to focus on kind of what's happening there instead of what's around me, like
Mm-hmm.
eliminating distractions essentially,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I feel like creating slides in a particular way that it's easy to
Oh,
read,
yeah.
all that stuff. That for me, that really pushes me towards worship, and also it helps with the speaker as well. Um, do you think there's like a need for media in the church? Like, is it like a necessity? Would you say, or
I feel like for kind of, if I'm speaking on behalf of the youth
mm-hmm,
kind of generation, I feel like yes, just because a lot of them, and like I would consider like I'm still part of the generation. Obviously, I like when lights are off too in the sanctuary. I like when there's just lights on the stage.
mm-hmm,
Um, I think that kind of helps them also like focus like what's in the front. And I feel like if there wasn't any like lights, they would not really be there. They wouldn't have their attention. That wouldn't
mm-hmm,
really, like, even on the screen what we present, like kind of what you said, how we present the lyrics, how we, whatever background we have on there, it kind of really helps to stay connected, like enticing the audience, because that's kind of when you're in church, you're trying to grab their attention. And I think that's really important to understand, to kind of know what kind of we started doing for youth, at least for the youth services, for worship, when it becomes worship songs, to kind of have cooler lights on LEDs, or like during services have maybe like white lights or warm light, kind of soft tone,
mm-hmm.
just so that people aren't distracted of like these red lights or green lights or whatever
Mm-hmm.
lights that we decide to put on. And I don't know, I think the need for media in the church for specifically these things, I think it is important to present ourselves like that.
Yeah, and I think also it's important to note that the message itself that you're presenting doesn't change. Like if we're looking at it in the sense of like the gospel stays the same, like constantly. When
Yeah.
you're sharing something from the Bible in a particular way, or you're singing a song in a particular way, it could be done in so many different ways. But the way that it's presented, transmitting the message,
Mm-hmm.
I think a way of looking at it is almost like you're trying. There's something you're trying to say, and you can either say it this way, which is gonna be way faster, way more effective, way more usable than maybe saying it another way where it's not really attention grabbing in a way. Which when I say attention grabbing, it kind of sounds bad. It sounds like you're just trying to convince the crowd that this is cool or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just kind of how humans are, and that's just the way that our attention spans work nowadays. Is that there's like a certain way you kind of have to do stuff, and there's nothing wrong with admitting to that. And I think that's a good thing that you've done in your ministry is you helped people know worship songs, because sometimes you'll come to service and you'll be like, I don't even know what the song is, but the lyrics are there, so I can sing it. So
That's happened a few times to me.
yeah, I bet. Yeah.
I do think I also agree with you when you said like the lights technically they don't mean anything. Like we're there for God, we're there to hear God's word. So lights, I honestly, if we don't have to do lights, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But I also think it's nice to have them just there, so it's not like, especially our stage, it's all black.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna be very, very, very serious looking. I feel
Yeah.
like.
No, seriously, yeah. But do you think it's kind of in the direction of hype, or do you think there's like a fine balance that we're looking at it from, where it's not necessarily hype that we're trying to get, but it's something else?
We're definitely at a fine balance. I don't think we're trying to do any hype, because if we did, we'd need a lot more lights then.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And I kind of like how we are right now, just because we're very simple, very trying to get straight to the point, and just to not really distract people with with the lights, with whatever's going on, and that they can actually pay attention to what's happening on the front of the stage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what would you say to the churches that are kind of pushing more towards hype, is that necessarily like a bad thing to be striving for? Because sometimes I'm like, we go to some conferences every year, and every church's production is different, right? So you go to one church's production and it's just crazy, like, you know, you got smoke machines, you got these lights, because it's a big auditorium, and you got a big stage, so you kind of fill it with all this stuff, and you're like, whoa, it's a lot to take in. And then other churches, they're like, no, you don't strive for that. Like, it's following the hype is bad. You know, you're doing something wrong. You're sinning. I don't even know how you'd be sinning, but you know, what is your view on churches that are kind of pushing towards the hype?
So I would say if you feel like you go walk into a church and that's kind of what comes to your mind, I'd say have an open mind about what you just walked into, because especially if you're like a first timer to that church, maybe that's just an easier way for them to worship God. Maybe that's just how they do and how they're used to it, but you know, we're not.
Yeah.
Even going to like a conference, I don't think that's necessarily bad, just because it's also like a lot of unsaved and unchristian people go there, and they're just like, maybe they're confused, like, whoa, what is this? It can scare people, or it can really like be like, oh, this is so cool that this is what's grabbing their attention.
Right. Yeah.
Like I said, I don't necessarily think it's bad. It just kind of depends on how they really express themselves. Because if they just talk about the lights and the smoke machines and whatever else, and that's it, then that's kind of like, why are you focusing specifically just on these little things when you could be talking about God? And like the conferences that I've gone to, they never really mentioned much, not from what I remember at least, about the lights. They never pointed out, oh, look at these lights, look at these, the smoke on the stage, look at that and this. And it's like, you know, I never really felt like that. I've gone to conferences also where I just really did not feel it. I didn't like it. I don't like when things are loud either that much. Yeah. I don't know. I think hype isn't necessarily bad, but it's also like not what I would do.
Yeah, right. That makes sense. No, yeah. I think it's important to look at it from a super balanced view. 'Cause I feel like in some situations that kind of stuff can quickly become idolized. You know, I've seen it in other churches where they're like, we got to make the production better because we're not going to draw as many people if the production is not enticing in any particular way. And to that, I would say that's like a wrong way of looking at evangelism, and a wrong way of kind of pulling people into the church. I think number one thing that should draw people is the love of God and the community itself too, that is sometimes overlooked over past that stuff, which, you know, again, we say this over and over again, like the lights, it's okay to have, I think so. Yeah. There's nothing particularly wrong about it. It's just, I think, you know, it's the thing that a pastor will say a lot, is that you can make so many things into idols, and then they can control you in a way. And it's like, I've been to churches where they're like, yo, we gotta put in more money, and we gotta get some more lights, you know, this isn't cool enough. And that usually leads to like a self-destructing attitude in Christianity for sure. Yeah. So I have a question for you, and it's, should we strive for excellence in media? Do you think that putting in an effort to making the media within the church specifically better, important, and why would you say that if you were to say yes?
I think that when we strive for excellence, just like in general, even not just specifically media, it really helps to kind of just set a vision of, okay, this is what we want, and this is kind of like what we're striving for. This is what we're going to be. This is the direction we're moving into. And I think that's important. I think in media, it's important to set things in a very good way, like in a presentable way. I think if we made it messy, if we kept messing up the lyrics, if we kept doing like really bright backgrounds or like super flashy backgrounds during worship or like even during the sermon, obviously that's distracting. Obviously you're not going to catch anyone's attention except for, why is that so bright? Why is that there? Why is it moving? Why is this happening? It's kind of like, if we didn't really strive for excellence, then it's like there's kind of no point, because then you're more focused on, oh, it has to look completely perfect. And media is flawed. It's not perfect at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
We've ran into so many situations
Yeah.
with the program we use for even like ProPresenter, which is the software we use to put up lyrics, and we show videos and photos. I like that. It's a really cool tool, really cool resource that we use, and it has its issues.
Yeah.
But I think it still works. That's kind of what helps, is like it works, but even if it glitches out in the middle of service, there's ways to fix it. Even if it's really like inconvenient or really awkward, it's just like, okay, we're just gonna turn it off and that's it. But a lot of times I think, just like I said, media is flawed. It's not made to be perfect, even though they strive to make it look perfect. It's just to, at least in the church, it's to help us to kind of focus and make it look presentable.
Yeah, for sure. I think, understanding ProPresenter, when you're getting into the lights and lyrics side of things, because I've also done it before, knowing the program really benefits the overall smoothness of the service, I would say, compared to a church that does not have a particular application in order to go through the service. And with ProPresenter in particular, you can throw up, there's like a Bible section where you could throw up like Bible verses, and then people can read off if they don't have the Bible with them. So they got like scripture that they could look at, and then there's illustrations that you can throw up, and all this has really benefited our service for sure, especially in a time when younger people are kind of drawn to this more visual aspect of sermons. It's almost like every time I look at a sermon now from a cooler pastor or youth pastor, they're always got like some pictures up or a video, or they got like these like props or something like that, and to me that shows, whoa, I remember this a lot better than I remember this, because just for my age in general, it clicks better in my head for sure.
I'm like that too.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we're becoming more visual as a generation. So I think that's important to note for sure. So I kind of want to switch gears again and talk about stressful moments. Talk about the times where things did not go to plan, and maybe there's a situation you're just like, what the heck am I gonna do right now? And you kind of had to get yourself out of it. So, and what are your like pet peeves with preachers? So if you're a preacher,
with preachers, okay.
If you're a preacher and you're watching right now, you better listen to her. So what you got?
So for stressful moments, I will kind of just say the basic ones. It's when so I usually come at least an hour early before any service, Sunday or Friday, to make sure everything works. Everything's like, okay, the lyrics are, the correct lyrics.
Yeah.
And if anyone has anything to send, they'll send it before service or the day before. There was, I remember this happened when we just switched over to ProPresenter 7 from ProPresenter 6. And ProPresenter 7 had a lot of issues. It would just freeze, glitch in the middle of service. And every time it would glitch, you literally cannot do anything. And it just frozen on the screen. And it's really awkward when the preacher's like, oh, put this up. And you're just like, no. That's like one of the most stressful things I feel like that I've really dealt with quite often. I know you have. Every time you did
Yeah.
words, for some reason, it always just went down the
I
drain.
always have issues when I'm on Pro Presenter for some reason, and it bugs me because it like it doesn't stop. Like every time I'm
Yeah,
up there, it just happens.
it's better now. We'll see for how long, but it's better now.
Yeah, definitely.
I think another stressful, I guess, times for this would be like when we have like our programs and like skits and stuff, and like people ask me or they ask the other people who are involved in this ministry, can you guys help us?
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't really have a game plan or anything ready for you, and you're just sitting there, and you're just like, okay, what do I do? I remember one year we switched, I don't know, we switched some stuff around right before Christmas Eve programs. Like it was literally 5 minutes before the program started.
No way.
Everything shut off.
No.
Nothing worked, and it was like the sound system at this point. I remember it was the sound. It's like nothing was working. The camera shut off, and we're just like, what are we gonna do?
Wait, what
We had
year
to
was
stop.
this?
It was pretty recent, like 2 years ago.
Oh,
Like when
okay.
we we got the new switchboards,
the
soundboard,
soundboard, yeah.
soundboard. Yeah, that was really fun time. Good year.
Yeah. Dude, I remember this one moment from this recent, what's it called, Christmas Eve event for like our youth skit,
Mm-hmm.
and our like projector was like it just
Oh my
decided
goodness.
not to work anymore.
Okay, so that's when so you turn the projector on, and it had a 10-minute timer because it was dying.
Yeah.
And like out of all the practices, the day of the performance,
Literally.
it died. And we had Basha, the handyman of the church.
He basically just does everything.
He tried to like switch the light bulb with another one, with an old one,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't like it. So it just kept shutting off. So like during Sunday service, the next day, and then like next few weeks, it was just terrible. I think it was right before New Year's or something. He got the right one. Bless his soul
Yeah.
for that. Cause yikes. And then okay, back to now. We're gonna switch over to pet peeves.
Yeah.
To all you people who are involved in this ministry or help out or do lights, whatever. So we have this pretty big button upstairs next to the computer and our light board thing. We literally have do not touch written on it. People always turn that switch off, and it's kind of freaks all of us out when people turn it off because we're trying to figure out why the LED lights aren't working. Why aren't they changing colors?
Mm-hmm.
Please stop touching stuff.
Yeah.
If you don't know, ask someone who does.
Yeah.
Another pet peeve for pastors or for preachers. Please send it an hour before service, or like give us a heads up. Don't do 5 minutes or when the countdown is going down. Don't come up to me or whoever's up there. Don't. It's not going to end very well. You're going to stress us out, or don't come after worship because that's a lot of stress right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes we'll have mercy and we'll do it anyways, but I think that's like one of my biggest pet peeves when people don't really give things in on time. That's kind of like a
Yeah. Because like when you're setting something up like Pro Presenter, you gotta like make sure everything is set in place. And you have to have like time to set everything up for sure, or else like something's gonna get messed up, you know.
especially if you decide to have like 10 slides and it's like 5 minutes before service. Please, no.
Yeah, I haven't had to do that yet, but man, that sounds terrible.
But I mean, we've honestly done a lot better. So thank you, Dennis, for telling people to do it on time.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it happens.
Yeah,
and
for sure. I remember there's this one time, oh, man, the thing you said about touching stuff, I was so dumb for this. You know, there's like this like HDMI connector that was in the computer, and I'm like, oh, or I think I accidentally pulled it. I don't know how I accidentally pulled it, but I did, and then it just went. And then I'm like, I don't even know what to do. So I put it back in, and nothing's working, and then. And then it just, Dennis is like, yo, what are you doing? Because the thing's going sicko. And then, so when I plugged it back in, all of a sudden the whole like computer screen was showing and all the files and everything on the desktop was showing. And I literally have no idea what to do at this point, and it just
I
keeps on
remember that.
turning on and off and on and off, and then it's just like staring at me, and I don't really know what to do.
I remember that. Oh,
Yeah,
we shut it off.
Yeah, I called you up and you're just like, yo, let's just cut this out. And
Um.
here's the one thing, media always fail you.
Yes.
Always fail
Yes.
you. Like anything that can go wrong will go wrong for sure, including in media, because
Yep.
you're running ProPresenter. So that's
Not just that. The power can go out. There's that.
that's happened multiple times with the
Yeah.
cameras as well, and we're unable to stream. So that's just like interesting outlook on, you know, kind of what happens upstairs. So
It's a lot. It's honestly, I really enjoy being part of the media team. I love the people that are up there. They're great. Sometimes it can be super stressful. Obviously, there's moments where things are just not going to go the way you want it to go. But overall, I think it's important to understand that, no, if it's in your heart to serve, to be somewhere, I think media is a place, but you have to understand that it's a lot of responsibilities too. It's not just, oh, you just throw, you know, lyrics up and you turn the lights on and you're done. It's a little bit more to that, and it's, you kind of have to learn. It's all a learning experience. I'm still learning about ProPresenter, about things I wish I knew when I first started using ProPresenter, but
yeah,
it's, you know, you learn as you go.
for sure. Yeah, I think for anyone who would want to join the media, like they can, you know.
Yeah.
I think there's no like specific call to media. I mean, there is, but I would say if anyone wanted to try it, I think it's a good place to learn how to be involved in ministry. That's one way, and kind of learn the ins and outs of that. But I think for you know, when you first started, it was obviously difficult. You know, you're trying to figure everything out. But as time passed by, you know, you're leading this ministry, and I think it's actually really benefit us a lot. And I don't know how youth would be without it, to be honest. You know, I don't know how the church would be without it. So
yeah.
It's,
Despite, like, if anyone does want to join media team, just remember, like, your heart has to be in it too. It's not just media team, yeah, I can do it. Just like with worship team, it's like, oh, I want to sing because I have a good voice. I want to play an instrument because I know how to play. It's a little bit more than that. It's also like, I mean, it's not required. I'm not going to say you have to be super like, oh, yes, I need to know God. I need to know whatever.
join the media team.
I mean, obviously, having that relationship does help. It helps a lot with making you have peace inside of you so you're not like going crazy.
Yeah.
Also, remember another pet peeve? It's, oh, never mind. It came out. Never mind. I forgot it.
That's
Sorry.
okay. There's a lot of them. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah. But no, I totally get that for sure, and I think it's important to know. So, anyways, Christina,
Same.
thank you for coming on, talking about this, and yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Subscribe, leave a like, and also if there's any kind of topic that you want us to talk about in the future, comment it below, and that's a wrap. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, Sam.